Hello and welcome to Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast, the show where two former roommates talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I'm Kendi Zvokel, and as always, joining me as my co-host, the donkey in my life, I'd say, Kody Webb. Kody, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Yeah, super pumped for this episode. I think in this universe, maybe I'd be like Pinocchio or, one of the different characters. I don't know about Donkey, but yeah, Jack Spear, this should be a fun one.
I'm very excited to talk Puss in Boots, and I'm very excited to talk about it with our guest, welcoming to the show another one of my siblings. We had Kate on in the past. We're welcoming Kendi Zvokel to talk Puss in Boots. Kendi, how's it going?
Good. Super pumped to be here. Puss in Boots is like the perfect first podcast for me to join on, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, you sent us a couple different options, and really Puss in Boots popped off. Both is like a good one to talk about, and also probably the perfect one to talk about with you, because just of who you are, and I know that. yeah, Puss in Boots goes back, but we'll get into that. I do want to say, Kody, I think this is Jason Webb. This is the official call out. Where's he at?
That's true. I need to step up my sibling game, I think. I mean, you got 2 down. I'm still at 0. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give J Webb a call and get him on the pod, because it's overdue, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into it. Puss in Boots. We'll start with why.
Why so serious?
Kendi, why did you want to talk about Puss in Boots?
This was honestly, I think, one of the best animated movies I've seen in a really long time. And in terms of like a sequel, I think it's very rare that you get a sequel that's just way better than the first one and kind of blows the first one out of the water, in my opinion. I've always loved the original one. It's kind of just like a goofy, fun cat movie, but I felt like this one was like a legitimately good movie for more than just those reasons. So there's just a lot to like about this one.
Yeah, we'll talk about the differences between the two as we kind of get through this episode. But in my opinion, it was my favorite animated movie of last year. I know Pinocchio won the Oscar. Kody, I don't know how you feel after seeing this movie, but I'm definitely excited to talk about it. It's also only the second animated movie we've ever done, and the first one being Chicken Little, which Kody hates. So I'm sure he's glad to finally get a good animated movie off the board.
That's very true. Yeah, you had to bring up Chicken Little, of course, but yeah, we're kind of low on animated movies, so I think definitely a fun pick. Going forward, I do want to do some more. I've been throwing out Ratatouille a bunch. Korbin is not a massive fan of that one, but eventually we'll have it on. But yeah, I love animated movies, and this is a great one to talk about, I think.
And I mean, of course, notably, we did do a Pinocchio episode, which is a little bit different. Yeah. And maybe we should have included this movie in that episode, because it does feature a slight Pinocchio cameo.
True. I mean, we would have covered every Pinocchio case of the year at that point, which I thought we did, but yeah, evidently not.
Apologize for missing out on that front. Let's move over to Do You Remember? This one might be a little bit easier, but let's start with you, Kody, because I think you can probably pretty vividly remember the first time you watched this movie.
Yeah, just a little bit. This was my first time seeing it, actually. I did miss it in theaters, unfortunately. I think I was possibly the only one who didn't go see it based off the box office. But yeah, saw it on Peacock yesterday on my big screen, and yeah, that was a good experience. I feel like this one, maybe it's okay to miss in the big screen. It's not visually the craziest thing. So obviously pretty recent for me. So I do have a little bit of recency bias. So take that for what it is as well.
What about you, Kendi? What was the first time you watched this?
I want to say it was like the first week or two it was out. So back in December, took Connor to go see it, and thought it would be a good one for us to both go see. I think it's rare that there are movies that both of us will like really, really enjoy, because his threshold for like a good kids movie is a little bit lower than mine. But this is one I thought we'd both like. And I actually, after having watched it in the theaters and at home now, I thought it was one that was like a really great theater experience. And normally, like with an animated movie, it's not that big of a deal for me to see it in theaters, but I thought that one was really cool in the theater. So I'm glad I saw it.
Well, it's also an interesting thing. Kody, you mentioned the box office. This movie made $470 million worldwide. Was a huge hit, an unexpected hit, no doubt. But I think the thing that like people discounted is the power of like there being a movie for families and kids and parents to go see, right now at the movie theaters, nothing has come out since Puss in Boots that has been like a family movie, an animated movie. And I think that's really unfortunate because there would be a lot of money to be made and there would be, a lot more opportunities for people to go to the theaters and to see things and to, start that, out early. There's been a conversation about whether animated movies should even be put out in theaters. In the last couple of years, Disney has put a lot of their movies on Disney Plus rather than releasing them in theaters. Obviously, COVID had a factor in that. But even as we enter the post-pandemic world, they've kind of still been, Turning Red came out last year exclusively on Disney Plus. It wasn't in theaters. I think this movie proved that there was a basis at the box office for it, which I'm excited for the future of that. I will say it was a great theater experience. It was really fun to see in theaters, particularly because of the bright, flowing animation style. It looks good on a big screen. I actually saw this movie in November. Really weirdly, they just did like one day of early screenings. It was at the mall in Jersey City, so not even like in New York. Just Saturday, November 26th, the weekend of Thanksgiving, they were doing a special Puss in Boots early screening at like 3 p.m. So Mina and I went, we saw it. We were like, wow, this is really good. And then nobody saw it for a month, so we never even really got to talk about it with anyone. But yeah, excited that it has come out and has been so successful.
That is cool. You saw it early too. And November 26th, that's actually my sister's birthday. So we're just circling all siblings in this episode, which I love. But yeah, that is weird too. You saw it like a month early. Did they have like a veto? You couldn't say anything about it, like online or anything like that?
No, it just,
really?
Antonio Banderas did an intro before the movie where he's like, thanks for coming to see this in theaters. We really wanted this, as Tom Cruise did before Top Gun and as stars did throughout 2021, Margot Robbie and Diego Calva before Babylon. Antonio Banderas was there. Hey, thank you for coming to see this movie early, which, shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Antonio. Takes a lot of work to do that. So yeah, big ups.
Had you seen the first movie? Were you a fan of it?
Yeah, I saw the first one. When did it even come out? It came out forever ago.
Well, that's the thing. It's 11 years and 2 months distance between these two movies, which outside of Disney animated movies, that's the longest gap between like animated sequels ever.
That's crazy. Honestly, I did not know that. But yeah, I saw the original way back. I don't remember a ton from it. I haven't rewatched it in a bit, but Humpty Dumpty was just unbelievably forgettable, I feel like, and just not a very good character to kind of circle that story around from what I remember. But it's Antonio Banderas in like one of his best roles, weirdly enough. So it's a good character. Obviously, in the Shrek movies, it's pretty iconic as well. So, keep making spinoffs like this in that universe, and I really think you can't go wrong.
Absolutely. Let's get into our initial thoughts.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I'll start. Obviously, the first thing that you notice in watching this movie is the difference in the animation style. The Shrek movies and a lot of animated movies that DreamWorks made had this very realistic, based on, how would a camera move in real life? How would you shoot something type of animation? Whereas this movie, you can call it the Into the Spider-Verse effect. It's completely off the wall. It's got extremely bright colors. The camera is switching perspectives and moving all around in ways that would not happen in the real world. It feels very much like the Miles Morales swinging through the sky and comic book stuff happening around him, or even, similar to like anime influence as well. So I think you got to comment on the animation style, which I love. What do you think, Kody? Are you a fan of it in this movie?
I'm a massive fan. That was one of my first talking points as well. It really does feel like super comic booky, which that's not where this material really comes from in a sense, but I still really love the style. Just that opening scene where he's fighting the massive giant, I think like visually is probably the best one in the movie for me. And then there's kind of like points too where like if somebody's running at somebody else, like a kind of a weird angle, and then there's just like lines going past them. I don't know, everything in general visually in this movie I think is really, really cool. And like you said, like it is kind of spawned from the Spider-Verse stuff, but I think it's kind of the new wave of animation. And like you said too, anime has a massive effect on it too. And just how popular that has gotten, I feel like in the past few decades.
We're seeing Creed movies that are based on anime. I think it's fair to say that it has really begun to infiltrate itself into Western culture in a meaningful way.
Again, with the box office success, hopefully Hollywood is like, and same with Spider-Verse too, like critic success, fan success. Like, why stop making this kind of movie? So I think we're going to see a lot of it in the coming years, which maybe we'll get some oversaturation, which we do in every genre, but I'm excited to see more like in this style for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the two big things that like I left the movie thinking about were the wolf, which was just like terrifying to me. Like I left and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like the scariest thing I've ever seen in a kid's movie. And then the other thing, like you guys have already mentioned, the animation. I've seen a lot of people comparing it to Into the Spider-Verse, which I still have not seen.
Ooh.
So I've seen that comparison. It's been on my list for a while, just haven't gotten around to it. But I definitely picked up on like the anime aspects to it. That is something I did notice. And it was just super unique. I haven't seen a kids movie like that ever. And I thought it was really cool, really interesting. I think it really elevated the movie and made it a lot better.
Yeah, and I think it fits this story, and is that's why it's okay. The other Shrek movies and even the first Puss in Boots, like they're more comedies more than anything else, and I think this one was so much more action adventure that it makes sense to switch to a style that would reflect that and make that more fun and more interesting to watch.
In general, I think this is a really fun movie. Like you said, the tone is a lot different, I think, from the first one. Like I said, from what I remember. But character-wise, I think it's perfect for both Puss in Boots and the Shrek universe. But it kind of just gives him that extra layer of this is a bit of a different character. I mean, we see his past 8 lives, his confidence obviously varying a little bit from that coming into his 9th life. I think it's just really cool kind of to see a character go through like an existential crisis where they're kind of dealing with the fear of death. And then you add in, like Kendi said, a great villain. I think the wolf is one of the best we've seen in animation in a while. His style, his fighting, his even just like his weapons, I really like. And then he's got that just really dope whistle. Definitely add that in.
Oh my gosh,
but
that
so
whistle.
creepy. Yeah, so creepy, but so good at the same time. And like coming into that, I did not expect anything like that from a movie like this. So overall, I did like it. I do have some issues with it in general. Maybe a little bit overstuffed with some of the other characters and villains, which we'll get to. But yeah, overall, I think this is a really fun movie.
You said it was kind of a surprise for you, and I think it was a surprise for a lot of people. I love Puss in Boots. I think Shrek 2 is the best Shrek because of the introduction of Puss in Boots. I've even back when it was coming out, I watched some of the Puss in Boots like animated TV show that was in 2015. It like popped up on it's not even Antonio Banderas. It's like somebody doing an Antonio Banderas impression. But I still watch that. So I was invested, but I think a lot of people counted this movie out. The cast is kind of like there's some good people in it, but it's not extremely deep in the way a lot of animated movies nowadays are so stacked and layered. It's just a good couple heavy hitters at the top. And people were just like, the last Puss in Boots movie was fine, but no, I think this movie was fantastic, and excited to get further into it with you guys. Let's talk about the trailer.
We are gathered here today to say goodbye to Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots, you are down to your last life. You need to retire.
Oh, brother cats, sister kitties, meet your new roommate.
Well,
I'm supposed to be a fearless hero, a legend.
This is a person party. That's your party.
So this is where dignity goes to die.
the years start coming and they don't stop coming.
You're Puss in Boots? Let's talk.
No hablo inglés.
¿Hablas español? Yo también. Ah, ¿de dónde eres? ¿Te gustan las siestas?
I don't speak Spanish either.
You're funny. What's your story?
My story.
What are we looking at?
Cats have 9 lives. Watch! Watch! Watch!
Boss, I think you set the oven too high.
Now I am on my last life.
Oh no.
Legend tells of a wishing star, of a single wish waiting to be granted. Kitties of boss, I need your help.
Is the great Puss in Boots asking for help?
Well, you see, Kitty, please. That wish could get me my lives back.
Okay, Possum Face. I won't make you
The
beg.
trailer that we're discussing is the third trailer. Kendi, I'll throw over to you. What did you think about it?
It sets the stage for what you would expect. I feel like it's a pretty solid trailer in that way. It kind of shows you Puss in Boots is hit rock bottom. He's on his last life, and you see that there's maybe, Kitty Soft Paws is back. You see that there's this scruffy little dog, Perrito, has joined the group. It only shows the wolf, I think, for maybe like a couple of really small clips. And so I thought that was important, because while that's such a huge part of the movie, I think it's better to like not know necessarily going in. So I liked that wasn't like a large part of the trailer, because I think that's just such a creepy, important part to the movie and the story. And I'm glad that it wasn't a large part of the trailer.
Because I mean, it's a little bit of a first act, second act, like twist a little bit that, oh, the wolf is death. So I think it's important to hold that stuff back and not show off too much, especially when his moments are so cool. You don't want to give that up. Kody, this trailer uses All Star by Smash Mouth. I feel like you're either going to love or hate that. So what's your take on it?
That's pretty much the first thing I noticed off the bat with this trailer. Come on, dude, I love that.
Okay.
It's clearly, just trying to catch some nostalgia with the Shrek movies, but I mean, I'm a sucker for that song in general, so I like seeing that. And it's kind of just a nice throwback. I wish that was in the movie, honestly. Just play All Star in every movie and I'll be happy. Yeah, I do agree with Kendi. I mean, it gives away some plot points, but I think this is a good trailer, and it's the third trailer too. So it's surprising they don't just give away the entire movie, because I feel like they normally do that in Hollywood these days. But yeah, this one was good. I mean, it gave little scenes maybe that you could have kept from the movie, but I'd rather they do that than explain the entire story. In general, I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's a good trailer. People saw it before going to the movies, and they wanted to go. So I mean, it made a shit ton of money. So yeah, I think it was good.
I think it was like 4 months ago. This was like a month before the movie came out. So this was like the last trailer. I think it's interesting that this sells the movie so much more on like Shrek and the connectedness to that universe and the pre-existing IP than even the stars. Like, I don't even know if it says like Florence Pugh's name or John Mulaney's name. And if it does, it's like not very placed upon. And when you think again, like all these animated movies, whether it's the new Ninja Turtles movie coming out later this year, or Sing, or like whatever it is, it's like, here's the stars, boom, 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 here's all the voice actors. And this one is more focused on Shrek, which I'm not necessarily saying that's a better thing, that it's so focused on this pre-existing IP, but I think it is definitely interesting that is what they decided to sell this movie on.
I feel like that makes sense though. I mean, Shrek, again, box office just massacre every time a movie would come out, I feel like. And even like the new DreamWorks like studio intro, it's like heavily like Shrek's a big part of that. I feel like we haven't seen a Shrek movie for at least 10-20 years. Not 20 years, right? But anyways, I don't know. I feel like people just like that character in general, so it makes sense they're gonna try and sell it on that. But it is kind of a little bit past its prime, I would say. It's not the Shrek era anymore, I don't think.
Hey, Shrek 5 coming soon.
Hey, Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Oh God. Let's move over to the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's start with the good. Kody, what's the good, man?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it already, but the wolf I think is awesome. Just super menacing for a kid's movie, but I'll move past that. I think the voice work is actually pretty dang good in here. Antonio Banderas, great guy. I think you can't really replace him as Puss in Boots. Obviously, you're talking about that cartoon, which I kind of just want to check out to see how good of an impression it was. But Salma Hayek, I think, is just incredibly underrated in Hollywood altogether. Shout out Grown Ups. And yeah, she's great in this movie as well. But past that, I mean, like I said already, the opening scene I love visually. And shout out the Gingerbread Man for possibly one of the best cameos in an animated movie of all time. But yeah, I am pretty high in this movie. I feel like we covered most of what I want to talk about, but come on, give the Gingerbread his due. I feel like he deserved a couple more scenes after that Steeler.
What about a Gingy spinoff movie, Kody?
I'm here for it. If you have like a Gingy just join kind of this team friendship, I guess, that they started in this movie, that'd be dope. Kind of just throw in a couple more, Shrek characters in here, and I think you could spin this off a bunch of different ways. But yeah, I'd be down.
Nice. A couple good things for me. We've talked about a lot of this stuff already, but like just the fact that they put this theme of existential dread and this idea of being past your prime and having to retire and hang it up, and there's like literally he has like a funeral for himself, and he's trying to accept his life and his death. in an animated kids movie is I love it. I think it's hilarious. And I think it speaks to feelings that I have in my own life, and it's relatable in a certain way that you don't often find in movies like this. So I really appreciate that about it. The animation, incredible. I do want to just talk about, like you said, the stone troll fight, particularly the scenes where he's like running across the building and the perspective is switching and we're following behind him. Also that final fight with Death, this part where you like see the reflection of Puss in Boots in the blades and the wolf in the blades, and then there's the reflection of each other in their eyes. There's the giant ring of red fire around. There's just like so many cool stylistic choices and images throughout the entire movie that just really continue to stick with you throughout. Even the idea of this wishing star, it's like so important that the aesthetic of that and what that looks like is fully captured as something that's like magical and mystical that you would want to go after. So just really impressive job by the animators, and everything about the journey through like the dead forest and the cool map changing and the constant setting and location switching is the best part of the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I mean, just the constant like changing of setting, I feel like does lend itself perfectly to this animation style. Because everything that kind of you want in this movie, just from a visual standpoint, from those like creators, I feel like they can explore anything they want. Just because every 10 minutes, like somebody new picks up the map and they can kind of branch off into a different direction. So yeah, I like that a lot.
Everything about this is movement, and cats are always running around and jumping off walls and flying off stuff, so it fits very well with that theme. But like the camera, quote unquote, is constantly moving. It's never still. The characters are always moving. Perspectives are switching. So it's a very active and constantly moving movie. Kendi, what do you like about it?
I had a couple things. I really loved kind of the side storyline of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I thought all the voice actors that played those parts were excellent. I thought a lot of the exchanges between those characters were really funny. It obviously wasn't like the central part of the story, but I thought it was like a fun little side story. I definitely would love to see more with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So I really enjoyed that. I think the biggest thing for me though was just it kind of goes with what you said, but like the mental health themes that are kind of underlying in this. Puss in Boots, he's kind of hit rock bottom. His confidence is shaken. Like he doesn't feel like he can really have a life. And like I think at one point, they kind of suggest to him, like, everyone else only has one life. Like, you have to live this one life. And you kind of see Puss in Boots almost have these moments of like anxiety attacks or panic attacks a couple times. And like, in particular, there's the one scene where he's like having that kind of moment, and he's got Perrito comes and, lays on him and kind of helps him come back down from that.
Yeah, and then of course there's even like the jokes or the mention of him being like a therapy dog for him.
Yeah, and rubbing his belly and stuff. Yeah. So I think some of that is just because of, what I do for work and stuff, but I love that that's kind of had more prevalence in kids movies now, because I think it's just, you don't have to beat it over the head, but just having those like normal things included. So that was something that I just really loved about this movie, that they kind of had those honest things and tied it in, like you said, with just kind of figuring out what's next for yourself and like this existential crisis and like how you move forward. I thought that was a really excellent part of this movie.
The resolutions of both the Goldilocks story and the Puss in Boots story is about accepting things and enjoying the life around you and appreciating the family that you have and the people that are there for you, whether it's the bears for Goldilocks or team friendship for Puss in Boots, which is all great stuff. I think the characters as a whole and the people who voice them, like you guys have said, are fantastic. Got to give a shout out to Florence Pugh again. She's great in this, and also just going like full accent, like doing her real voice, which I feel like you don't get to hear a lot of out of Florence Pugh, which is fun. And the Goldilocks character is great. Ray Winstone, Olivia Colman playing two of the bears as well are fantastic. Harvey Guillen, who plays Perrito, Salma Hayek, of course. And then Antonio Banderas. Listen, the impersonator is good, but nobody can do it quite like Antonio can.
Fair. Yeah, also shout out Ray Winstone. You already mentioned him, but The Departed, of course, and a part of that. But yeah, Florence Pugh, give her more movies where she can just talk normal, because I love her voice. Bring her back, I agree, for a bunch more of the sequel of this, obviously, too. But yeah, give me Irish Florence Pugh every day of the week. I mean, come on. She's not Irish, is she?
I think she's just regular British, but I could be wrong.
She sounds Irish. Yeah, I don't know. Keep that in.
English. Yeah. Nice try, Cody. let's move over to the bad stuff. Kody, what's bad? I know there's one particular thing you mentioned in your letterbox review.
Yeah, I mean the John Mulaney character. You might have to reintroduce me to his name because I don't remember it completely.
Jack Horner.
Jack Horner, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of just like he could have not been in the movie, and I would have been fine with it. Like you have enough people, I think, without him, with the wolf and obviously Goldilocks and Three Bears kind of coming together with their storylines. But yeah, I mean, it's just a character I've never really heard of, which I feel like is most the fun with these kind of fairy tale, Shrek universe. I mean, I just don't like him in general, which is probably a good thing. Like they did a good job for me not liking him. His thumbs just like really gross me out. Maybe that's just a me thing. Yeah, he's kind of just not interesting either, writing wise. I mean, kind of just like, oh, an evil guy who has no other, positive characteristics about him. And his powers is, oh, he has a bunch of magic stuff in this grab bag that never ends. So, I'm not a massive fan of that character, but that was probably my one main gripe. John Mulaney's not bad. Like he does fit I think the voice role for sure. But yeah, kind of just a weird character, I thought.
I would like to say that Jack Horner is probably the worst effect that Into the Spider-Verse had on this movie. Kingpin, and then also even John Mulaney doing a weird voice role. This one's a little bit more elevated. So I agree that there's probably just like too many villains. I think almost they wanted to make sure that there was one person in each point of the star at the end of the movie. So they had to have 5 people, but you could have probably cut out Jack Horner. I think in general, this movie is a little bit too long. It's the longest movie in the entire Shrek franchise, comes in at about 1 hour and 42 minutes. You could maybe shave up a little bit of time, tighten up, give us a little bit more Goldilocks stuff, a little bit more background of that, give us some more Kitty Softpaw stuff, like, before she meets back up with Puss, see what she's been up to. But yeah, I would have been okay with seeing Jack Horner removed when you have villains as successful as the wolf and then, kind of anti-hero, lovable villains like Goldilocks and the Bears.
It is funny too. I didn't realize it was the longest in the Shrek. I feel like this movie it didn't feel that long at all, I don't think. So props to it there. But
Shrek, notably short movies, but
yeah. I mean, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you could have just cut him in post, if I'm being honest, and that would have worked. But yeah, I did have a couple other things too. I'll shout out quickly. I do like Goldilocks and Three Bears, but I feel like maybe if you cut them off at the point where they were in the cabin and they kind of just like realized, oh, like we don't need a wish, like we kind of just need to go back to this, I think that would have been fine. And then just leave the finale for just like all wolf, just because I kind of wanted more of him at the end, which again, I mean, we did get a good amount though, so I don't mind it too much. Then past that, one tiny plot point, I don't know, maybe I missed it, but he kept like referencing the Alice in Wonderland sort of like eat me, drink me stuff as like, oh, I'm going to save this for later. And then he never used it. So I'm not sure if there's some rewrites or maybe I just missed him using it. But I just thought that was a weird reference because they did it twice too. He's like, oh, this will be great for later. And then he pulled it out when they were in the flower place. He's like, oh, I'm saving this for later. And then he just gets kicked down. So maybe that's a sequel thing. Maybe it's just a couple rewrites, but I thought that was weird where they kind of shouted out twice and then never came back to it.
Yeah, obviously like all those items are supposed to be parodies of like Disney fairy tale, blah, blah, blah things. You get the poison apples from Snow White, blah, 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 Mary Poppins bag that he's throwing everything into. So I think really that's just kind of what those things exist for more than anything, as a joke, as a gag. I don't know if there was some deeper thing that it was saving up for, but
maybe that was in the post-credit scene.
Yeah, maybe. Kendi, what do you think's bad about this movie?
I actually had trouble with this. So my bad was just, and not that this was like bad to the movie, but it just made me really sad, is like the story about Perrito's litter mates. Like that was super dark, that they like put him in a sock and like put a rock in it, like threw it into the water. I was like, that is like super, super dark and like really sad. Like I know it's important to his character, but that's kind of what I came up with. Like, I know, it's not anything bad about the movie, but I was like, man, those are some bad litter mates. Like that makes me sad.
Perrito has been through some stuff for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is pretty dark for a kid's movie too. And the funny thing is, like, he's kind of proud of it. Like he's still wearing the sock after all that time. So yeah, I do agree. I thought that was weird.
Well, I think that's the thing about Perrito is that no matter what, he's going to keep a positive attitude. He's going to love the people around him, and he's, maybe going to end up in a river because of it. But
yeah, definitely looking at the bright side of everything because he grew into the sock and now he could wear it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I kind of had the same reaction as like Puss and Kitty Softpaws in that scene of like, oh my gosh, like you don't know how bad that was, what happened to you.
I think this movie is definitely funny, but I think in terms of the Shrek universe, it is probably the least funny movie. Even I did rewatch the first Puss in Boots movie, or at least the first half of it, before we hopped on the Zoom call. And like, there's some decent jokes in there. The plot may not be as strong, but like, I think it plays off the cat stuff a lot more. It plays onto the pop culture references a lot more interestingly. So I think this movie, I'm going to knock it as being bad, that it's just not as funny as the other Shrek entrants.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there are still tons of jokes. Maybe some of them are more, nurtured for kids. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The Shrek movies, I think, are just comedy, comedy, comedy. And this had a little bit more of kind of just like maybe existential thinking, like we're talking about. Just deeper themes, I think, in this.
I mean, I think the Shrek franchise has always done a good job of balancing that act between like the adult humor and the kids humor, and even like you watch the first Shrek movies and there's some like very obvious references that probably kids wouldn't get, but like are there for the adults. I feel like this movie has less of that stuff. Even the first Puss in Boots movie opens with him like leaving a cat as like a one night stand and getting it's just strange the things that are happening. But let's move over to the ugly. Kody, you mentioned this earlier. Well, first of all, I want to say in terms of like our traditional ugly things, I don't really have a whole lot for this movie. Yeah. It's a pretty sweet, good way. There's nobody in this movie that's been canceled or anything that I know of. But I do want to call out that DreamWorks intro that you mentioned. They got rid of the old DreamWorks intro. They brought in this new one, and it's this whole thing of like our movie studio intros have to be like the Marvel intro, where we share you all of our characters and all our properties. And I just hate that. It's like, why does the DreamWorks logo just have to be how we own Shrek and we own this and that? Like, just show us the dude, on the moon with the fishing pole. I think that's iconic, and I hate to see studios go in that direction.
I agree completely. I think that's really, really dumb. And like half those franchises that they went through already, like How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda, like I feel like those are close to being over. Like they've already made like 4 movies for all of those.
DreamWorks doesn't have a lot of like active franchise really, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah. Also, they had the cool guys in the beginning.
The bad guys. I haven't
seen, but the nice guys. I don't even know the name of it. That's how bad it is. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. But I completely agree. I like just the guy sitting on the moon fishing. Like that's iconic. I don't know why you'd want to change that.
Also, obviously, like this movie is a sequel to a prequel of like a pre-existing franchise. So like we can talk about that as like we're in the death of movies and everything's a franchise, and whatever. Like animation is one of those places where it's like, does everything have to be a franchise? Because kids are like new and they're children and they don't know about pre-existing things. So like we can just give them new stuff. But I guess us adults are going to come back to Puss in Boots. Rise of Gru was another movie that came out last year. Minions Rise of Gru, that was also a sequel to a prequel of an existing franchise. We're just in a weird area of movies right now.
It's kind of just like the in-between reboots to a sequel. I don't know. It is really hard to even like comprehend where we are like in the plot wise with everything. But yeah, I don't hate it. Hollywood's Hollywood. Give me more reboots. Like you said, I mean, if we keep doing this, like we're just gonna keep making the same stories like every 100 years almost, which is exactly what Disney is doing. So I don't know. In 100 years, maybe we'll get an even better Puss in Boots movie. So keep it going.
It took 10 years to get this sequel, maybe 100 for the next. Kendi, what did you have for ugly? Anything?
We kind of already talked about this, but I slid Jack Horner into my ugly because I did not love that character. I think there's a
problematic person.
Yeah, there's some argument to be made that the role is important, but like I don't think it's a particularly strong argument. I think you've got, as we've talked about, the wolf, death, this kind of big bad like looming presence. And I think it's kind of different because Death is, seeking out this last life. And while he's kind of a villain, he's also not in a way.
He's a
iron
natural
suit
force.
job. Yeah. And so I get like you need this more like obvious villain role in a way, and that's kind of what Jack Horner is, and everyone gets to unite against him, and then there's like a separate standoff with Death or whatever, which is all fine. But yeah, I definitely hated the character. Like I think you could put a different villain in that place almost. I, like Kody said, I also didn't really know Jack Horner. Like when they said the like rhyme or whatever, I was like, this sounds a little bit familiar, but wasn't anything I was like super familiar with. Agree, the thumbs and all of that. That was kind of gross. So yeah, just that character was my ugly for this movie.
I agree. They probably could have just picked a different fairy tale character. Jack Horner is not someone I was familiar with either. The pie thing doesn't really have any relevancy to the actual plot of the movie. And like, he's just a terrible person. Like he makes a bridge out of people that he rides his carriage over. I was on some like wiki for this movie and it was going over the death count. And it's like every single one of them is killed by Jack Horner pretty much. Just not a good guy at all. He turns that one lady into gold with the Midas touch.
Oh, he racks up the death count, and it's all his own people too. Bridge, that was actually kind of a good gag, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, despicable character altogether, I'd say. And the thumbs are really gross. But my one ugly, I don't know, and it's not really an ugly. Like we said, it's hard to find something in here. I don't know how many times I've seen this in a kids movie, but there's a decent amount of bleep. I don't know if you guys noticed, probably, but I think it's funny, honestly. Like that's right up my sense of humor, but I think it's questionable. I mean, it's a kids movie, so who knows who's watching. But I wish there was like subtitles, so we kind of just got like the first letter. So that would have been a fun joke for the parents, I think. But yeah, I mean that was really the only thing I could really pick out here. I feel like there's not too much in this movie.
Well, considering you did watch this on Peacock, Kody, I would say you could have turned on the subtitles, but I don't think they would have given you any more information. Something that I used to do sometimes, like you can look at the parents guide on IMDb, which is a thing that like details exactly like what are the sex and nudity that's in this, what's the violence and gore, the profanity, the alcohol, the drugs, all the different stuff, and it'll like scale it, if there's none or any. And I was just curious. I wanted to like look at this movie versus the first Puss in Boots movie. So neither of them have any sex and nudity, so no worries about that. They both have mild violence and gore. The first one has no profanity, but it does label this movie as having mild profanity. So there you go, Kody. It is letting people know. There's no alcohol, drugs, or smoking in this movie. But of course, 2011 was a different time. So there is some mild alcohol, drugs, and smoking in the first Puss in Boots movie. My guess is probably some cigars getting smoked, but something in the past couple of years that's been like a distinct turn of no matter what, like just keep it out of movies, which I think is a smart thing. And then finally, unsurprisingly, the original Puss in Boots, frightening and intense scenes, mild. This one, moderate, because things do get a little bit more frightening and intense.
Wow, big jump there from mild to moderate. I love that. But yeah, we should start doing that for most of these movies, being like, go look at the IMDb and they'll just tell us what's ugly about it. So I love that.
I mean, the funniest thing is when you go like it describes everything, and it's like in the most like technical professional terms, so it's sometimes funny to hear the different things in movies described on the parents guide page.
I have to say the parent guides are like super handy. I haven't used them much with Connor, but I've used them for the teenagers I work with just to make sure there's nothing that's gonna be an issue. And I think my favorite is like when they say, oh, this thing was implied by this, and it is very detailed. And they do come in handy sometimes.
Yeah, and like even sometimes it'll be stuff and you're like, oh, I missed that. I didn't pick up that was a reference to something, but okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I feel like probably for the first Puss in Boots, if we watch that right now, like unless it's an obvious smoking scene, but it's probably just somebody at a bar, and in this movie instead, like it's just all milk. So I don't know. It's probably just like that subtle, I feel like.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right. And we're back with Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Welcome to Whose Line Is It Anyway?
We've got some quotes and we're going to try and guess who said them. My first quote, "Don't you know I'm dead inside?" Who said that?
Don't you know I'm dead inside? I did watch this movie yesterday, so I should get these right, but I actually don't think I know.
Nothing from the audience. Well,
Kendi, you want to throw out a guess first? Because I have no idea.
Jack Horner.
I'm gonna
Jack
guess.
Horner, great guess, and the correct answer. Obviously fitting because Jack Horner is, a character who I would say is dead inside.
Oh, is that when Jiminy Cricket's yelling at him? Yeah.
Ethical Bug, I believe is his name.
My bad. Cut that from copyright infringement, but ethical bug. Yeah.
Disney's coming for us. We'll throw it over to you, Kendi. What's your first quote?
You know what trust gets you? A sock, a rock, and a swim in the river.
Well, of course, it's
El Perrito.
Probably, I gotta say, probably my favorite character.
Wow.
Puss in Boots, he doesn't lean too much on the cuteness in this one, and you got Perrito's ugly cuteness to even things out and bring it up.
I love his makeshift cat costume. I think you should have just kept that on the entire time, and I maybe would have liked him a little bit more.
So it was about Perrito, but it's actually Kitty Softpaws who says it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because Perrito, he doesn't view that as something sad and distrustful that happens to him. But of course, Kitty Softpaw does because she's realistic and also super negative.
I just brought one quote to the table, so I'll throw it out for you guys. Bit of a D list here, I think, quote, but we'll see if you get it. The quote is, "And we will never wash it again."
I do remember this. So it's from the beginning of the, I don't know who says it, but it's like Puss in Boots is a celebrity. He high fives someone or something along those lines, and they're like, "Oh, we're never gonna wash our hands," or it's like that's the joke they're making. I don't remember the specific bit though. I don't know. Kendi, do you remember?
No, I nothing.
You were right on it, Korbin. It's a little bit different from what you're saying. So it's basically a dad, and Puss in Boots was getting to the counter or something, and he stuck out his son's face to help Puss in Boots get up there.
Oh yeah. He steps on him with the boot.
Yeah, he's got the boot print. He's like, "Oh, we're never washing that." So you basically had it, but yeah, it's just some random dad, basically. I don't even think it's a credited role, but yeah, I thought that was a funny line.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting also, it brings up the conversation of at the beginning of this movie, Puss in Boots is at the highest of highs. He's a celebrity. He's surrounded by all these people who love him. He literally steps on a little kid's face and his dad says they're never going to wash it again. Whereas the other movie obviously opens on a lower note, where he's wanted and on the run. This one, however, you get the steep downfall quickly in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then that sets everything up. But it is interesting to see him, on top of the world, and then everything, falls away when a bell lands on him.
True.
I do have one more quote for us here. "You're not going to shoot a puppy, are you, Jack?"
That's got to be not Jiminy Cricket. It's got to be him.
It is not Jiminy Cricket. It is the ethical bug. I wanted to pick this line because I love the response from Jack Horner is, "Yeah, in the face." Poor Perrito.
That's a good line. I like that line.
My second quote, though, is, "You think this scruffy geriatric bag of bones is a legend?"
It's a good line.
See, but the thing is, I do want to say that this is Perrito, because I think it's when they're trying to get Puss in Boots and he's got the weird, creepy, long beard. And Perrito's like, "This guy, this bag of bones."
Yeah, that does sound right. I'm going to double down and go for a Kitty Softpaws double, but that kind of makes sense too.
Yeah, Kitty Softpaws already knows him, so I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
think so.
Fair.
So it's actually Goldilocks. I believe this is when they're at the house full of cats and they're trying to find Puss in Boots, and they do find him, but they don't realize it's him. They're like, "Oh, this is him." And Goldilocks is like, "You think this, scruffy, old looking cat is the legend Puss in Boots?"
Right setting, wrong person.
Yeah. Good line though. Florence Pugh, shout out.
Yeah, as always. All right, let's move over to Invite, Fight, Night.
I dubbed thee Sir William.
We'll start with Invite. Kody, who do you want to invite on the podcast from Puss in Boots, The Last Wish?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the obvious one is a little double duo, Puss in Boots and Kitty Softpaws. I think just their chemistry is unmatched, and they'd be great to have on. So many stories, so many tales I think they could go over. A sleeper pick that I did want to throw out there, I think Baby Bear would be a great guest. I think out of those out of that family, I think he is probably the funniest. And he'd have a lot of good stories to do about him and Goldilocks, I'm sure, getting into a bunch of stuff. But I think his voice is probably the best out of those group as well. He kind of has that British slang thing going as well, which I really like. I'm not even sure who it is. I think it's one of the more unknown people in the movie, but I think he'd be a good guest.
Samson Kao, he was in Bloods, Truth Seeker, Our Flag Means
Mhm.
Death, just kind of some smaller TV shows. He's been around. I think he's a comedian.
He's good though. Yeah, I like him a lot in this one.
I would definitely say Puss in Boots as well, just because of the voice. Got to get that, Antonio Banderas talking. I always like to think about who would sound good on a podcast. Obviously, Puss in Boots would be great to listen to for an hour. But on top of that, I need to get Ethical Bug in because, first of all, Kody, you would continuously call him Jiminy Cricket, which I'm sure would cause some problems. But also, I just want to kind of get to the bottom of what's going on with his character, why he exists. I read in the IMDb trivia that the voice there is like it's doing a Jimmy Stewart impression because it's like making a joke about the name Jiminy. I think that was just a weird IMDb piece of trivia that's not true, but also maybe it is. And I want to ask him why. Why are you doing a Jimmy Stewart impression?
That's really like off the wall, I feel like, if that is true. But I kind of respect it. It's funny enough for like a deep cut joke, but yeah, they might as well just call him Jiminy Cricket. I don't know. That's pretty dumb. Screw you, Disney.
Yeah, my answer is not really any different than you guys. I'm inviting the legend himself, Puss in Boots.
You got to. What would you ask him?
Oh man. I don't know. I'd probably have to come up with some like good cat questions for him.
On a logistical level, I am curious about this. His deaths. Do you guys think those, like, where in the timeline do you think those took place? Was it before he met Shrek? After? Like, I'm a little curious about that.
It's not explained. I would just think it's kind of all over. I mean,
I tried to look it up. The internet had no answers.
Really? Somebody will make like a 3-hour-long YouTube video eventually and explain it all. Yeah, I don't know. I would think probably all around. I mean, we don't see any of them in Shrek movies, so I would assume a bunch of them are before. But I mean, obviously, I feel like a bunch of them would be after as well. So yeah, good question. I have no idea. That'd be a good one to ask him.
Let's move over to fight. Kendi, who would you fight?
This is probably going to be an unpopular one, but I'm fighting Perrito.
Oh no!
I know he's, a great friend. He's so sweet.
You're just like his litter mates.
I mean, I'm not throwing him in a river. I'm not trying to murder him. He's probably the most annoying character to me. Like, I know he's supposed to be annoying and he's sweet and he means well and all this stuff, but like, I think I very much identify with like Puss when they're getting ready to enter like the magical area of the map, whatever you want to call that. And he's like, oh, let's go together. And then he just like kicks Perrito in on his own. Like, I feel like I really felt that in my soul.
I actually think that's a good pick. I haven't been crazy high in Perrito. I feel like in the beginning, like he was a little bit too annoying when it was just him and Puss. When the whole friendship crew started, I thought he was a little bit better. But yeah, he I think deserves a kick or two. So I back it.
I can't stand this. Kody, who do you want to fight?
Yeah, my fight. And by the way, I this is by far my favorite category. I say it every pod, but I love it. I mean, we've mentioned him. I've already thrown some slander his way. It's the ethical bug, whatever you want to call him, Jimmy Stewart, Jiminy Cricket. I don't really care. I think he deserves a little whacking. I mean, he didn't really do anything to help out, John Mulaney at all. So kind of just useless altogether, and like not funny too. So yeah, I think he needs to go. Probably just a little flick of the wrist would take care of him as well. So that'd be a good time.
It's also weird because like Jiminy Cricket is a Pinocchio character, not related to Jack Horner. So I really don't even know why he's there. It is strange at all. I'm gonna fight death. Obviously, can't say that I'm gonna win that battle, but I'll go down swinging. Puss in Boots could do it, so I just gotta have faith in myself.
True. I mean, he didn't really win the fight. Death was just like,
he proved himself. Yeah, that's all you got to do. Show you wanted enough.
You could take him.
Thank you, Kody. I appreciate that. Let's move over to Knight. I think this man needs a suit of armor. He needs some protection from you fools. So I'm gonna Knight Perrito. He's so sweet. When he steps on the map, it's just bubblegum and rainbows. They could easily get to the star. He's a wonderful soul, and he doesn't need any of this slander that's being thrown at him.
The bubblegum and rainbows are like half the issue here.
I agree.
Kody, who do you want to Knight?
It's someone who has not, I don't believe, been mentioned this entire podcast, which I love, and it's Buff, Puss in Boots. Well, just for one reason only. That's the only way to do it, man. No spotter is the way to go. You got to have extreme confidence at all times, and yeah, he deserves to be knighted just for the way he went out, I think. But just the unbelievable confidence on Buff Puss, I think is awesome. So I had to shout him out.
Yeah, that was actually written in my ugly. I just didn't mention it.
Really?
I think James Gunn might have watched this like a little bit early and then was like, let's make Groot buff too. And now we're gonna get that awful thing come out in May. So just for all, I don't need buff Puss in Boots. I don't need buff Groot. I don't need it. I just need regular. And if he was so buff, why did he die? It doesn't even make any sense. He's that jacked to then get crushed by a bench press.
He went too hard. He also went out doing, something he loves. You got to respect it, dude.
True. It's better than losing to dogs in poker, or maybe beating dogs in poker and then getting eaten alive.
Yeah.
Kendi, who do you want to knight?
Mine was kind of a toss up between Kitty Softpaws or Mama Bear. Kitty Softpaws was totally, sick of Puss's shit, but still came through, and she kept telling him you got to get it together, but she was still there. She still completed the mission, had his back, told him when he was wrong, all that good stuff. And then Mama Bear just, was, a peak Mama Bear. She took in this orphan and raised her as her own. And even when Goldilocks was, kind of just saying screw you guys
doing
to her
the
family,
angsty teen thing.
Yeah, she still was we're gonna support you and get you what you want and help you achieve your goals. And even though it's kind of saying we're not good enough, we're still gonna be there anyway. So Mama Bear came through.
Mama Bear, all-time mother character. All right, let's move over to the recast.
Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Kody, what do you got for us?
I got a couple fun picks. Obviously, first off, I do want to get rid of John Mulaney. And I kind of want to change the writing of his character a little bit too. I guess we can keep the same character, but just get rid of the thumbs mostly. Yeah,
I think that's pivotal.
That is very important for me.
It's no thumbs, no Jack Horner.
Well, we can switch it. Nobody knows the rhyme anyway.
Solomon Grundy.
I don't hate that little DC shit out, but give me a crazy Jared Leto in this role instead. I want a real weirdo. I don't know why, but John Mulaney, he's just pure evil, which again is not really interesting. So just give me someone who's way out there. I think almost on the opposite spectrum, and I kind of just want to see Jared Leto voice something in a kids movie as well.
Well,
this would have been a good one to do it in too. There's not too many projects where I think Jared Leto would be allowed to be a crazy person. So yeah, tough he missed on it.
Well, first of all, Suicide Squad, they let him do that, and we saw how that turned out. But I've defended Jared Leto's acting in the past. I don't want to necessarily defend his character at all, but I will say probably let's keep him out of movies that involve children, maybe.
Well, yeah, in hindsight, that's probably a good point, but. Hey, the man needs some work. Just put him in the studio. He doesn't have to go to the premiere or anything. Just let him go crazy in the studio.
Fair enough. What else do you have for us, Kody? Anything better than that?
I do have another one to replace Perrito, because I think the voice actor was good, but just a little bit unknown. And you got to have Hollywood stars in your movie, I think. So I think this would have been a good role for Tom Holland. He just doesn't do enough work these days, honestly. It's just all Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
He doesn't get enough work.
I mean, cut out Spider-Man. He's done 3 movies in the past 10 years. So yeah, I think he was in an animated movie, Onward, as well, which I thought he was actually pretty good in that. Chris Pratt, maybe not the best, but also not a great movie, I don't think. But yeah, give me more Tom Holland in animated roles. I think that's somewhere you could thrive.
That's probably the worst thing you've said in a while.
You don't like my recast? You're hating on my recast, dude. What's going on?
Kendi, what do you got?
So I really wanted to replace I think his name's Harvey Guillen as Perrito, because I think a lot of my issue with the character was the voice. It really gave me Josh Gad as Olaf vibes, and I just don't like that. So I really wanted to replace that, and I just racked my brain and couldn't think of anyone because it kind of has to have like almost a childlike voice. It's like a cute little dog, and I just couldn't come up with a better replacement. So I guess luckily for Harvey Guillen, I looked elsewhere. And the person I kept coming back to that I would really want in this movie is Sofia Vergara. And so I was like, okay, the only role I feel like that really makes sense is for her to replace Salma Hayek, which I don't have an issue with her voicing Kitty Softpaws at all, but I just really wanted Sophia in this. So that was my recast.
I like that. I definitely think she could do the role justice.
I think we could throw her in as Perrito and just do a little writing switch. I don't hate that. I mean, I agree. Tom Holland or Sofia Vergara, I'm down with either. So I'd back it.
I will say Harvey Guillen going to be appearing in the Blue Beetle movie coming out later this year from DC.
Nice.
So unnamed role at this time, but there you
Love
go.
that.
Jack Horner needs replaced. I want to do a little bit of pandering to you, Kody. So big guy needs a big person. We've got skinny John Mulaney playing big Jack Horner. It just doesn't make sense. So let's go for the one of our favorite big boys, Dave Bautista, in the role of Jack Horner.
That was so obvious. Somehow I didn't think of it. But
Kody, I think it's because you're trying to, keep that out of your mind. You get your Dave fixed later in the episode with a new category. But we had to give Dave a shot. His thumbs and jelly, I think we'd be okay with it, right? I also want to change the voice actor for Death because as much as I like the character and I like the writing and I like the style,
really?
It's played by Wagner Moura. I don't even know who that is. I think it's kind of just an okay performance. I think you could bring in somebody with a lot more gravitas, a lot more, power. And I want to get Idris Elba. Now, maybe it's a little too on the nose, but, in terms of animation, he's never really played a villain like that. He's played more of like side, friend type characters. I think he can be a really menacing person. I think, him as Death being like, oh, I'm going to with his accent. I think that'd be really great. Idris Elba.
Yeah. I don't think he's had too many chances really to play like the bad guy. I mean, obviously he has done that a little bit more recently, but
Hobbs and Shaw, of course.
Yeah, of course. He's Black Superman, and The Wire too. He's classic in that too. But yeah, give me more Idris at any time. I think in our last couple episodes, I recast him and you gave me crap. So terrible pick, Korbin.
Well, it's about the role. It's not necessarily about the person. Tom Holland, maybe you put in his Baby Bear, I'd be more accepting of. But as Perrito, come on.
No, Baby Bear actor was great. He'd be great as Perrito. Okay. In an alternate universe somewhere, Tom Holland 100% has played this role and he's gotten praise for it. So you're out of it today, bud.
All right. Any other recasts? Do you guys have anything?
No,
I just had one come to mind. You're talking about getting a bigger guy maybe for what's a thumb guy?
Jack Horner. Very forgettable.
What if we bring in Brian Tyree Henry and throw his Bullet Train accent in and just have, this crazy, completely different character with Jack Horner. I think I would want to see that. I think that would be interesting.
I love that.
Brian Tyree Henry in anything is great. And I don't really know if he's done a lot of voice acting stuff. So I think that'd be cool to see him as well.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, let's move over to our rating.
You're going to look at me and you're going to tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
Kody, what do you want to rate this movie?
Ooh, starting me off. This is a tough one. I don't think I'm as high on this film as possibly you guys are. I'm going to kick us off at a nice little 54 out of 69. I think that sits right in my sweet spot of good movies. Yeah, a lot of positives here. I'm going to go 54. Maybe me and Korbin are around the same pace because you underrate movies a lot. But yeah, I think that's a good spot for it.
Yeah, so I'm actually lower than you, but of course we know how this always goes with the scales. I'm going to give this movie a 50. For me, it's like a 4-star movie. I do like it a lot. I think it slogs on a little bit, and in general, it's an animated movie at the end of the day, which I'm not necessarily always as high on. There's going to be things that we've talked about that I like more, that I enjoy more, but I think for animation, this is, and especially in recent animation, this is kind of the peak of what can be done.
Yeah. So how is it a 4-star if it's 50 out of 69 though? I mean, that's not really good.
It's the bottom of the 4 stars. It's even with The Conjuring at this point. It is the lowest possible 4-star. Last week we had X-Men Days of Future Past at a 49, which was a 3.5-star movie.
Okay. I respect that. I think I'd put those about on the same playing field. So yeah, respect.
Thank you. Kendi, what do you want to give this movie?
So this scale kind of broke my brain a little bit. I had to do some math to figure out what was
It
going to
doesn't
make
make any
sense.
sense. Yeah.
No.
I went with a 55 because that, like, percentage wise puts it like right around 80%, which is, 4 out of 5 stars. So that made the most sense to me. So I'm going with 55.
And you're right on track with us. So clearly it makes sense to us as well. So good use of the scale. All right. And we'll move over to our next category, a post-credit scene.
What if I told you we were putting a team together? Who's we?
We're going to add a post-credit scene. Now, this movie, interestingly, doesn't have a post-credit scene, but it does have a pre-credit post-title scene, which is them on the boat going to far, far away, kind of alluding to, oh, hey, the gang's going to get back together, and maybe we'll get, Kitty Softballs and Perrito in a Shrek movie. Kody, I do want to ask, if they do a Shrek 5, do you want to see Kitty Softballs and Perrito in it? And what do you want the animation style to look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say yes, I would want them in it. I don't know. I think you just stick with this animation style and kind of just run with it. I mean, Shrek in the DreamWorks intro didn't look the best visually, I'm not going to lie. So I don't know if we can base it off that. But, I mean, all he did was wave. So I don't know if we really got all we'll see from him. I don't know. That is a great question. I'd say keep the hot streak. Like, play with what you got right now.
I struggle with that a little bit. I mean, I want more of these characters. I thought this was a really fun movie, and I know it's from the Shrek universe, but I don't know that this animation style that they use in this movie is going to mesh up well with Shrek. Like, it's been years and years since I've seen any of the Shrek movies, but just from what I remember, I don't think there's a lot in the Shrek movies that would kind of lend to this animation style. And I also just think at this point, like, I really enjoy the Puss in Boots stories separately. Like, I'm not going to say no to seeing them more if that means having them in a Shrek movie. I just think for me, they're pretty separate. Like, I know it's the same universe, but I just don't know how much crossover you could get with that moving forward. I mean, I'm sure they could come up with something, but and it seems to imply that maybe that's the plan, but I don't know. I don't need it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if, I've been, protecting him this whole episode, but I don't know if we really need the Perrito donkey interaction to happen. Like, we can probably, just skip over that. Kody, you're interested maybe?
I'd be down. And I don't know, dude. I feel like just this team friendship, I feel like you carry these into the Shrek movies. I think that kind of just be a glimmer of hope I feel like there's kind of a lot of negativity in the main group already. And Puss was kind of included in that. So kind of just bringing in a different side to it, I think would be fun. But I mean, they can do whatever they want, really. That universe, I feel like they've expanded on a bunch. So they can go any kind of direction they would really want to.
I think realistically what needs to happen is, I mean, a problem with Shrek 4 is that it's like almost in 3 even. I think it's like a little bit overstuffed. There's like the kids and there's the drag. Like, there's so many characters that have started to come. You get the weird Rumpelstiltskin plot or whatever that happens. I couldn't even really tell you, but I think most likely is like we'll see all these characters in the beginning of the movie, and then something will happen that gives us, the original gang in the Shrek movie, and other people will pop up throughout. We'll get Pinocchio, we'll get Gingy, but I think they smartly they need to focus on this core group. In terms of the animation, I think Shrek would kind of just look terrifying in this style of animation, and it would not work well. You don't want to scare kids in the theater more than you have to, and the plot of those movies doesn't really fit that animation style either. I think maybe just doing like a toned down version of this where you kind of introduce certain sequences or moments that focus on it, but for the most part staying rather realistic would make more sense. We're not going back at this point in animation. I think we've reached that point where like we're not really going back, but I definitely don't think we can be as hyper stylized as this movie for a Shrek movie. But we'll see. We'll see what DreamWorks does. It's going to happen. So with the financial success of this movie, it is 100% going to happen in some form. So
yeah.
Let's actually talk about post-credit scenes, though, Kody.
Yeah, basically. Well, I'll just spell out the scene, but I'm basically just pitching a direct sequel to tie in Shrek. But yeah, we come up from black. Team friendships rolling up to Shrek's house. Walking through the swamp. They knock on the door, and I don't even know where we're at in the timeline. His kids are old enough, I guess. They answer it. Then Shrek comes out. He's got a massive like gray beard, and he says, get out of my swamp, or whatever his line is. And then him and Puss just talk about, oh, nice beard, dude, nice beard. And then it cuts to black, and it says Shrek will return. So I think just a little nice reference to just a sequel with Shrek and the whole gang. So yeah, that's my post-credit scene.
You love your "we will return" motifs. So shout out to you for that. I actually don't really want anything that's like a direct Shrek reference. The thing I would be okay with is if we did like a Gingy and a Pinocchio scene, maybe like, oh, we flash back to the ship and we realize like, oh, hey, these guys are on the ship too, and they're going with them. And there's like a fun scene of that. Or if we're gonna do just a Puss in Boots thing only, I was rewatching that first movie, like I said earlier. I did have to look it up because, the villain of that movie is Humpty Dumpty. And I Googled, does Humpty Dumpty die at the end of that movie? And I guess the answer is technically yes. He like falls off a cliff and then there's a golden egg left in his place. My pitch is we pan up, there's the golden egg sitting there, it hatches, out pops a new Humpty Dumpty. And he's the next villain, but he's like a weird goose Humpty Dumpty or something. I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, do you really want to see Humpty Dumpty again?
Yeah, bring back Galifianakis, man. What a weird time. Galifianakis in a Puss in Boots movie in 2011.
Different era, it feels like, but yeah, I don't really want to see that, but fair enough.
Hey man, 1 year before the campaign, dude was popping off.
The campaign. Good movie, underrated comedy. Shout out Will Ferrell.
Agreed. Kendi, what's your pitch for a post-credit scene?
I had a few. I think there's a few different directions you could go with this pretty easily. I think the most obvious one being like, they're headed to happily ever after. So maybe you see, Perrito show up in the swamp and kind of like Kody said, this is my swamp, whatever, what are you doing here kind of thing. And then, Perrito being like, oh, it's so beautiful here, whatever. And then just kind of end it there. I think that's, like I said, that's the obvious one just because of where the movie ends. I would like to see something with like the three bears and Goldie, like setting up maybe a spin-off movie of their own, kind of see, instead of maybe them just going home, they find some other adventure to get into, or maybe they get home and then, realize, something's happened.
Their home's been destroyed. Yeah. Some other mythical creature. I like that.
Yeah. Something to set them up. And then the other one that I thought of was maybe we go back to the crazy lady with all the cats in her house, and maybe it shows that there was another cat there that could talk all along, and maybe this is the new villain. Like you've got an evil cat that, I don't know, had some beef with Puss because he thought he was too good to live with the cats. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, even if it's not a direct plot sequel, I think bringing back the crazy cat lady for a little post-credit joke would be great.
Yeah, I agree. We missed out her on some of the categories. She deserves a couple nights too, just for those socks. But yeah, I like that one too.
All right, and let's talk 6 Degrees of Dave. We're gonna connect this movie's lead, Antonio Banderas, to Dave Bautista in the 6 degrees or less. Not necessarily the quickest route, but just the most interesting one that we could come up with. Kendi, do you want to start?
Sure. Hopefully I did this right. So I had Banderas and Wahlberg and Uncharted together.
I thought about doing this route.
And then Wahlberg and The Rock were both in Pain and Gain.
Nice.
And then The Rock and Dave Bautista had very minor roles in Thor: Love and Thunder, or you could go one of the Fast and Furious movies.
I like it.
Did you guys watch Uncharted?
No.
Yeah. What did you think of that movie, Kendi?
I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I intended to watch it for a while and just kind of put it off. I thought it was decent. I mean, I don't know anything about the video game or anything like that, but it was an okay movie. I didn't love it, but it was fine. It was I guess a good like adventure kind of movie.
Yeah, it's just Tom Holland will never be Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. He'll never be as good of a treasure hunter. So just in comparing it to that, it just doesn't hold up, I think.
Yeah, he's kind of too innocent in a way. Like it's hard. I mean, I guess the character is sort of innocent, but he's still trying to be an action hero. So I don't know. In a different way than Spider-Man.
I mean, it's a role that like for many years Wahlberg was supposed to play, and it's like I don't see I don't see Tom Holland as like a similar thing to young Mark Wahlberg. Like those are not similar archetypes to me. So that's why I just don't feel like he fit that character very well. But otherwise, like Banderas is a fun villain in the movie for sure. Cody, what do you want to do here?
Yeah, funny enough, I'm going on Uncharted's way as well. So Antonio Banderas going to Uncharted, which I haven't seen. Maybe we'll check it out eventually. Through Uncharted, I'm actually going to connect Mark Wahlberg. And then through there, I'm going to go to Boogie Nights, which I think probably is his best role. Shout out PTA. A lot of great actors in that one. I was thinking about going John C. Reilly, but that's just too obvious to connect him to Guardians. So instead, I went Julianne Moore and connected her to Crazy Stupid Love, which of course I went there to Ryan Gosling. And we're back around to Blade Runner 2049, which Dave is obviously an integral part of. Great scene in there. But yeah, I don't know. I think you can go kind of around this way a lot, especially once you get to Boogie Nights, just because that is such a great cast. I thought about going William H. Macy through Fargo and stuff like that too. But yeah, I thought that was a fun way to do it.
I like that. It's a good one. I went The Mask of Zorro for Antonio Banderas because that's something I think we haven't really talked about is that like Antonio Banderas is really just like doing Zorro as Puss in Boots. Like, yes, he's so great in the role. Mina mentioned this to me earlier. It's like because he's basically playing like the animated cat version of that character. So we had to shout that out here. But also in The Mask of Zorro, Catherine Zeta-Jones, who is in the movie Traffic, which I feel like I wanted to talk about because it's crazy that in the year 2000, the Academy was like, we're gonna nominate 2 Steven Soderbergh movies for Best Picture and for Best Director. So he was double nominated for Traffic and Aaron Brockovich, both for Best Picture and Best Director. And that was when there was only 5 movies. So it's so crazy to think that like Soderbergh in 2000 had 2 movies that weird thing to think about.
Yeah,
for sure. Did end up winning Best Director for this movie, for Traffic. But then also in Traffic is Benicio del Toro. And then, of course, Benicio del Toro plays the collector who, has had, interactions with Dave Bautista and Guardians and Infinity War. And, it's the obvious pick, but yeah.
You should have gone Benicio del Toro to The Last Jedi, his best role.
True. But then I would have had to figure out something from there, Cody. You love that movie. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned it more for you.
True. Never bring up Benicio del Toro on this podcast. It's always bad.
Yeah. Traumatic memories for you, for sure. Let's move into our last category, recommendations.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Kendi, what do you got? I know you've been watching a ton of movies recently.
Yeah, tons of movies, tons of TV. I work from home 3 days a week, so I tend to have something on in the background. I pretty much always am watching like The Office and Modern Family on repeat. Those are like, comfort shows, staples. But in terms of like new stuff I've been watching, movie wise, I just watched The Watcher, which was pretty interesting. Is it Micah Monroe? Is that how she says her name? Do you know?
I do not know.
Yeah, so I've actually seen her in like a couple different movies recently. I watched her in one with the guy from Shameless. I can't remember the name of it. And then I watched her in It Follows. And I definitely want to see her in more, I think. The Watcher was interesting. It was a little slow, but it was definitely suspenseful. The end was kind of crazy. So that was pretty good. I watched Alice Darling this week, which I just thought was a really interesting role for Anna Kendrick. And I thought it was like a really great portrayal of emotional abuse, which you would think would be something like super hard to portray, but I thought it was like really excellently done, seeing like how that manifests for someone who's experienced that. So I liked that. I finally got around to watching All Quiet on the Western Front, which is totally not my kind of movie at all. So I wasn't really expecting to enjoy that, I guess. And I can't really say that I did, but it was incredibly well done. Like that was obvious how it was shot. Just all the battle scenes were super well done. So I can see why it was nominated for a bunch of things. And I finished The Departed today. I've been watching it in pieces over the last couple of days. It's the first time I've ever watched it.
Your Letterboxd review is also interesting. Cody will have an opinion on it, so go ahead and share that.
So I hated the end. Like it pissed me off.
The rat.
Like not even the rat, like the whole last like 5 to 10 minutes pissed me off. And I was just like, what? Because it took a little bit for me to get into it. Like, that's why I've been watching it in parts. Like, the beginning was kind of slow for me. And then the middle, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm super into this. Like, it's really tense. Like, when Leonardo DiCaprio's character is on the roof, and it's like they're maybe about to catch him, and everything's kind of getting to this point of like who's gonna catch who first, and I loved that. And then I just hated how it ended. It's just like, yeah, it pissed me off. That's how I felt about it. I liked the movie. The end didn't like ruin it for me or anything, but I was kind of just like, okay, like pretty much nobody made it out, and this is
Marky Mark.
Yeah.
It is kind of just like a depressing ending. So yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where it's like, as you watch it, you start to get to the point where you're like, there's no way for this to end like well for all of these characters. Now, unfortunately, it literally doesn't end well for any of the characters.
Yeah.
Like, not even one of them gets to succeed other than
like everyone's dirty kind of in a way, like really, I guess, except Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Like, he's trying to do the right thing in this position he's been put in and still doesn't make it out. Like, I think that's what pissed me off. Like, you think maybe he's gonna get there, and then just like boom, elevator doors open, and it made me so mad. But yeah, those are like my movies. I would say I'm watching a lot more TV shows right now. Apple TV's got some really great stuff going on right now, obviously with Ted Lasso coming back on. That just started last week. I've been watching Shrinking, which is just like absolutely incredible. Cannot recommend that enough if you guys haven't checked that out. Harrison Ford's in it, a bunch of other individuals who I haven't really seen in anything else. Jason Segal's in it, but there's kind of a bunch of other people I think that are maybe newer to bigger roles potentially, but it's just super well done. All of the characters are super interesting. So I'm really enjoying that. Dear Edward's been pretty good as well on Apple TV. But yeah, Shrinking, can't recommend that enough. I just finished up The Last of Us last week. Another really great watch, I think. I haven't played the game, so I don't really have that comparison. But from what I've seen, even the people that have played the game were really happy with how it was done. So it seems like that was all around successful. I watched the second part of You on Netflix that came out. Kind of liked where they went with that. The end also pissed me off with that a little bit too, but I don't know if you guys watch You, but
we have it. What do you think about the Netflix, like the 2-part release season thing that they've started to do? Stranger Things, You, the Jason Bateman show, the blue one.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe it like extends out viewers for them. Maybe there's some reason in the numbers they do that, but like for me, I don't really see the point. Like, either do weekly or one drop, like either let people binge it fully or don't. Like, I don't really understand that, I guess. Like, they have a couple reality shows, one of which comes out this week that I'm super excited for the new season, Love is Blind. It's just like the most dramatic ridiculous thing. But with that one, they do like, it's normally like a 10 to 12 episode season, and they'll do like 3 or 4 episodes at a time. I don't know. I don't personally see the point, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe it's just to give people time and like spread out spoilers. Like, I don't know. I'm not really sure.
I think it's motivated by a few things. I imagine, like, definitely viewership. Like, you got to have a subscription for multiple months. Also, like, TV is hard to make, and especially the way like modern TV shows are with like longer episodes and higher budgets, where it's like you're basically making a movie every week, and it's like giving themselves more time to produce these shows is important. I think that was huge for Stranger Things. They were finishing up VFX shots like the week it was released, but then like it's like not the model that Netflix has lived on for the entirety of Netflix. So I'm curious to see if it's something that they're going to continue to do, if maybe they're even going to at some point do the weekly release thing, because HBO Max, Disney Plus have been so successful with it. Definitely curious to keep an eye on that. I think there's a lot of great TV on, like Kendi mentioned. Wednesdays in particular, like the busy days for me. You got Ted Lasso releasing, new episodes of The Mandalorian coming out, Abbott Elementary's finishing up its 2nd season. And then, of course, Survivor is on Wednesday nights. Cody, we just missed the episode. We'll have to watch it after this. But yeah, Wednesdays and TV, there's a lot of good stuff. I will say, get your TV in now. There's talk of potentially, a writer's strike coming out. There's a lot of things that are not necessarily like maybe being pushed to the end of 2024. Like, I don't know, we might not have some stuff come out for a little bit. So, enjoy your TV while you can. Do want to give a shout out or a suggestion for you, Kendi. Micah Monroe in a movie called Hot Summer Nights with Timothée Chalamet. Check that out. She plays his love interest. Pretty fun one. So there's a recommendation for you.
Like, I've been seeing him in a lot of stuff too. So
there you go. Cody, what have you been into, man?
Yeah, we haven't recorded for a little bit, so I do have some stuff, mostly TV. I have been binging actually Nathan For You a lot more. Made it through a couple seasons of that. Shout out Nathan Fielder. Definitely a weird guy, but that show, I feel like the more it goes along, the better it's getting. Season 1 obviously was I think really peaked at the escape episode, which I do want to do some more research on, but I believe it was like 100% real. Could be wrong on that, but check out Nathan For You, fun show. Past that, the two kind of, I guess, stuff that's coming out weekly that I am checking out, of course, Survivor. I thought they were good. I mean, I feel like episode 1 was definitely the peak of the season so far, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely interesting how the alliances are kind of shaping out. Last week was a bit boring, so hopefully they bolstered the ratings tonight with a little bit of craziness. But yeah, I don't think I've watched one episode live either this season, which is really funny. I think their viewership is down in general too, so hopefully they don't cancel before returning season. But the other live show that I have been watching is Picard season 3. Shout out all the Star Trek fans out there. But I'll tell you what, the first couple seasons of Picard just god awful, terrible television. But season 3 is actually not bad so far. They basically just brought back the cast of The Next Generation, which is a good show. And yeah, like Patrick Stewart actually seems to care about the season, which is nice. They bring back all these returning characters who we've seen in that show in the past too. So a lot of fun cameos. So yeah, if you like Star Trek, check that out. Probably you won't. But past that, been busy. I mean,
my mom will watch it, maybe.
She's the one who's making me watch it. But yeah, it's college basketball season. I mean, just had a massive, weekend of games. I've kind of been taking up all my time with that. And yeah, they kind of start up again this weekend. So I'm on a bit of a movie hiatus. Something I am super excited about. It's coming out, I believe, what is today? The 22nd? I think, what is it? The 24th, 26th is Succession season 4 premiering on HBO Max. So I'm pretty hyped for that. Yeah, season 3 was great. The ending obviously had a great cliffhanger, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of where all the characters at. Shiv and Tom, I mean, I don't even know where the hell kind of they're all going to be positioned going in this season. So that first episode, I think, is going to be a ridiculous amount of fun. But yeah, that's all I got this week. Kind of just excited about, some stuff coming out TV wise.
Yeah, I'm excited for Succession season 4. I've been rewatching it a little bit with Mina, getting prepped for season 4, the final season. I think they had their premiere last night or the night before, so a ton of stuff's been coming out of that. Lots of great pictures of everybody on the blue carpet, I think it was, for Succession. We haven't talked. I do want to just run through movies that I've seen recently because we didn't really talk about it in our last episode. So I did see Scream 6, which I liked. I didn't like it as much as Scream 5. I don't want to obviously spoil anything, but I just think it was a little bit more ridiculous. It's kind of following the path of the original Scream franchise. So this one is kind of similar to Scream 2. But, it was all right. Definitely some grotesque and intense kills, more so than the 5th movie. But, definitely not as much as Scream 4. I also saw 65, which is the Adam Driver dinosaur movie. Not good. Not good movie. I mean, here's the thing. It's like 92 minutes, 95 minutes. So like it's short. Adam Driver is on Earth 65 million years ago. And listen, there's a comet coming. It's not, it's okay. He's fighting dinosaurs. I think the biggest problem with it is the movie centers around him and a young, like, female childlike character. It's similar to the Last of Us, or even, like that type of thing, like the pseudo father role. The problem is these two characters, they don't speak the same language. So there's like no interaction or character development between Adam Driver's character and this little girl. And it's just like really tough throughout the whole movie for that to like try and work. It's definitely been hacked to pieces to all hell, shot and re-edited and cut. And it's a little bit of an unsuccessful movie, but I respect Adam Driver trying to start a new blockbuster franchise.
Interesting. So I mean, there's kind of just no dialogue, I guess.
I mean, like, Adam Driver, he does his, video logs, or he does his, typical space movie shit. And he tries to talk to the girl, and they do like some, motioning, and she speaks in a different language that we can't understand. So like, it's just, it's strange. I don't know. Also on top of that, I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the very first time. I actually really enjoyed that. A little young Keanu Reeves taking a dip at that before we take a look at John Wick 4 this weekend. I saw Gone Baby Gone, which is Ben Affleck's directorial debut. Poses some interesting ethical questions about, like children and what's best for like the upbringing of a child, and making unethical decisions for the best of someone. It's kind of a mystery story. It's very grounded and set in the reality of like poor neighborhoods in Boston, which I think Ben Affleck, whether it's in Good Will Hunting, The Town, or Gone Baby Gone, like he has an authenticity, and having grown up and lived in those areas, that he's able to capture and make it really real, make sure the accents are real. It also features Holly from The Office as the mother of the child that is missing. I also saw Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I didn't like it as much as the first Shazam movie. I thought some of the effects and directorial stuff was pretty interesting. There's definitely some cool choices. There's some stuff that feels a little bit Raimi-esque with the way the camera moves and the way different colors and lighting and shot. There's one really cool scene where there's like a bunch of lightning coming down and Shazam is kind of shrouded in black. But as a whole, like, I don't know. I don't think it was very funny. Zachary Levi's playing the character like he's like 13 when the actor that's turning into him is like 19 and is, I think, 17 as the character. So like that stuff just doesn't really work for me as much. The villains are kind of just meh. Like, it's Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu just kind of being like, yeah, we're on a green screen and we're trying our best to make this good. But and then the final set piece is, at Citizen Banks Park in Philadelphia, which is just an interesting choice. This is the year of the baseball set piece. Creed 3 also ends in Dodger Stadium for the final fight. So, shout out to baseball, I guess, for having an impact.
Did you like Shazam 2 more or less than Black Adam?
Definitely more than Black Adam. So I will say that.
We'll take it then. We'll take it.
And then last two things, new releases. I did see the new Willem Dafoe vehicle Inside. I think this movie is a little bit too long, especially for a movie where it's, just Willem Dafoe trapped in a house for like 2 hours. I think you could have shaved off a little bit, but there's some really great acting from Dafoe, some really like gross out and intense scenes. There's some, weird allegorical stuff that I can appreciate, but maybe just, a little too dragged out. And then I also saw a movie with the worst title to be released in 2023, Operation Fortune Bruise de Guerre, which is the like Guy Ritchie movie with Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza and Josh Hartnett and Hugh Grant. And like, it's a movie that's way better than you expect it to be. Nobody really talked about it or went to go see it. Like, it's a competently made, like, kind of a Mission Impossible ripoff with fun people like Jason Statham and particularly Aubrey Plaza. And there's some really cool stylistic stuff. It's just, it's a Guy Ritchie movie that falls a little bit flat at times near the end. But that's everything I've seen. Had to catch up a little bit there.
Put Aubrey Plaza in more like action roles, I think. Just put her in more in everything, I guess. But I feel like she's really like strong in that genre, and she's not in any movies. So
yeah, the role she has is kind of like she's like the tech person, the hacker, and in the beginning of the movie, she's doing a lot of like exposition that kind of slogs her down. But then like second half of the movie, she just gets to have way more fun and is getting to play like this undercover character and kind of infiltrating the billionaire's estate, and she's great. It's the best.
That's cool.
I think on the note of Aubrey Plaza, I just need more of her just being herself. Like, like she's just such a character on her own. And I watched Black Bear recently, and that was just like her being herself in the most like unhinged, but like funny way. And that whole movie was just like so weird from start to finish. Like, I don't know. It was just so Aubrey Plaza. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It was the weirdest movie. She got to play herself, but like also have these super emotional, like well acted scenes. And I just need more of that from her, because I just think she's such a fun person that she doesn't even really have to like do anything other than be herself, because she's just so interesting and funny.
Yeah, Aubrey Plaza is great. I think she's extremely well loved by everyone. I've talked about it before, but like Emily the Criminal is a movie that came out last year that I think she's great in. She's not really playing herself at all. She's doing some accent work, some more deeper character stuff. But I think she should just be in more stuff in general for sure. So definitely agree with that. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Kendi, for coming on to talk about Puss in Boots. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll have to have you back. Maybe we can talk some Modern Family on First Friday 5 in the future.
Ooh.
That would be a good choice for sure.
All right. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Stay capping.
Peace.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.